What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another video. I hope everybody's doing well. And to start this video, I got two things to let you know. Firstly, if you haven't watched yesterday's video, I highly suggest you go and watch that because I'm not going to be re-explaining all of my marking outs, so you can just follow straight along. And secondly, tomorrow on Wednesday is CPI. So in terms of accuracy and just general analysis in general, we do need to be very careful. Very low risk, especially moving into tomorrow if you do plan on trading it, which I think is really stupid. But yeah, we should see quite a big expansion tomorrow, as CPI usually gives us. But yeah, let's get straight into things. So here's the weekly on dollar, and you can see how we've started to trade down into this weekly fair value gap that I've had my eyes set on. So if you watch my weekly review, you know I've had my eyes set on this fair value gap to get traded down into, but we're still just floating around on top of it. And yeah, let's get down to the daily and have a closer look at price. So here I have some marking outs from yesterday's price review, and you'll see how I have this daily consequent encroachment, because this was the level, this was the highest I wanted to see price trade. You can see we failed to trade into that, and you can see that on Monday we also closed lower, which I also wanted to see. Moving on to Tuesday, we traded lower again, running into these lows, which is also what I anticipated. So it was very nice to see us trade down into that today. And because we've traded into this sell side liquidity, I'm going to just grey that out like so. And yeah, pretty good day. I did get in on a short trade, and it was good to see that we reached this target. But overall, I do want to start seeing us start to actually trade down into this fair value gap, so into this range. So moving into tomorrow, I do want to see another close down candle with the expectation to push deeper into this range. One thing to take note of as well is that now that we wicked up and down here, and obviously we wicked basically this range here, so I'll just show you with the box, and I'll make this orange. This is now starting to look a bit like an implied fair value gap. So as far as I'm concerned, the midpoint of this should provide resistance, and when we drop down to a lower time frame, we'll be able to see what that level is. But moving into the new day, preferably price will find resistance at the midpoint of this range, and that will help send price lower with the expectation to run for these lows. Now remember, tomorrow is CPI, so you know anything can happen and it can be very dangerous. But generally speaking, I am looking for this to provide resistance for price to be sent lower. So let's now drop down to the lower time frames. I'm going to just quickly write daily implied fair value gap. And if you don't know what an implied fair value gap is, well, you can look for ICT. Implied fair value gap is only explained like once, I believe. But if you want more context on it, I can make a video explaining more so what they are. But yeah, this is where I'm looking for price to find some kind of resistance. In fact, let's just make this thicker and dash it. Now let's drop down to the 4 hour and get a better look at price. So you'll see today we traded right up to the level which I called out yesterday. I said we have a breaker here, high, low, high, low, higher high, and then price is broken lower. So I brought our attention to this last down close candle. You see how we tapped into that today and then traded lower off of that, running down into our south side target. So it was very nice to see price trade right to it. You really can't make this stuff up. The fact that we touched it and then, you know, look at the reaction off of that level. Very beautiful. Again, if you haven't watched yesterday's video, go watch it and you'll see how I brought our attention to that. Since then you can see we've retraced off of that south side liquidity, traded a little bit higher, and again we're turning around as we're running into that Asia range. So we will go to the low time frame, but before we do that, I do want to just show you the range of that weekly fair value gap. Remember this high and this low. So let's just draw the range out, and you'll see that today we traded right down to that 25% level and got a reaction off it. This is classic price action. Came down to the quarter level, came off it, but I don't believe price has the strength to come up here. It can, and if it does, so be it. And remember, we do have CPI, but preferably I am bearish, meaning that I don't really want to see price get any higher than this 4 hour fair value gap right here. On the 1 hour, I'll explain this a little bit more clearly. We also kind of have another breaker, high, low, higher high, and price is broken lower. So I'm watching this wick specifically. In fact, let's just we'll draw it out very lightly for us to look at on the low time frames. But generally speaking, I don't want to see price trade through this, as I want to see continued resistance. So long as price is respecting this range which I've drawn out in this grey box. So long as we stay inside of that or below it, I'm happy to be expecting lower prices with an expectation to run for that 4-hour fair value gap I've had my eyes on for a while and start reaching for that 50% level of this weekly fair value gap. So that's my expectations. We'll go to the 1 hour. I do already have my daily dividers marked out. There is a daily implied fair value gap here. In fact, yeah, this is from earlier this week as well. I'll make this black. In fact, we'll get rid of that for now. But yeah, so here's that level we traded up to today. Hit it during London, classic price action, traded lower, retraced, fair value gap entry right there. And then we targeted that south side liquidity, which we grabbed, and then turned around at that 25% level off the range, traded higher, and again we're finding resistance. Now what you'll find as well is that we've now created relative equal highs. So above this high and above this high, there's relative equal highs, so there's going to be liquidity up there. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if moving into tomorrow, we did see price trade higher above those highs, grab stops, and then start to trade lower into that 4-hour fair value gap. That would be my ideal move on price, to be honest, assuming we are going to trade lower. But like I said, with CPI, you can only hope so much. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about this breaker range, this range I was talking about. So this high is lower than this high. So that's why I'm watching this last down close candle as the range to where price should trade into and find resistance. You'll also find that there's a fair value gap coupled with that last down close candle. So I hope this is making sense, making it just a classic breaker in general. So we've got a high, a low, a higher high, price is delivered to the downside. We have a breaker, last down close candle before the up move, and a fair value gap. So more specifically, I'm going to be watching price when it trades into here. And hopefully once price reaches that range, I'll be looking for shorts on dollar and obviously longs on the pairs once it's in this range. Now let's say the price doesn't do that and it does trade through it. If this gets violated and we trade through this range, then price may likely want to start running for these highs, and we may be more bullish than I realized. But again, if you've watched my weekly review, you know that I don't really want to see price violate this level here. It can do it, and it really can do it, but it doesn't. But I don't want to see it do it, and that's what we need to understand. Let's also mark out the Sunday opening. So this is the opening price on Sunday. We'll use a dotted line like so and drag it right through to the end of the week. And you'll see, if you've studied Sunday openings, you'll know that price uses the Sunday opening as like it helps gyrate price. So it can act as either support or resistance. You'll see how we, disrespected that level here, creating a fair value gap. When we trade back up to it, I'd like to think it would find resistance again, because I'm expecting to see displacement to the downside. So yeah, very interesting day. You can see we're just going into a slight consolidation as we move into Asia. When we open with the London kill zone, again we might see that rally during London, and then with CPI we might see that expansion. Let's see what time these are. So we've got a lot of high impact news at 8:30, so I'll definitely be looking for setups around 7 or 8, but overall I'd like to think that we can move lower. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I'm just realistically what I'm watching is this little consolidation. I want to see this consolidation provide resistance. Like I'm hoping this is a strong enough consolidation that price shouldn't need to go any higher. If it does, price will likely bypass this high and start looking for these highs. But like I said, if you've been watching my videos, you'll know that we should be in a sell program, and there's lots of biases to help along with that. So let's just drop down to the 15-minute to finish off. Again, beautiful price action, traded up, classic price action as well, and I'll show you why. So if we get the Asian range drawn out from 7 p.m. until midnight, and we just drag that out, and we'll make it purple because I usually have my Asian range as purple, you'll see how we traded higher, took out the Asian range high, targeted the low, retraced where to the Asia range low, and then we broke down even lower with a continuation in New York to run down into that south side liquidity. So beautiful day today. You can see we're back inside that Asia range consolidation. We could actually drag this out, and you'll see how price uses this range. So we might find that price finds support on it, trades up to our level, and then hopefully finds that resistance that we need. So very interesting day to look forward to tomorrow. Please guys, do stay safe and keep your risk low. Let's now head over to GBP USD. And we're going to start on the weekly here. And again, here's that weekly fair value gap I was looking to get traded to and through. Well, traded Here's that weekly fair value gap I'm looking to get filled. We can drop down to the daily, and you'll see here is Tuesday's price action. So we traded higher just as expected, and we also traded down into Friday's high. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, you know I stated this Friday high should act as a bullish order block. So as soon as price came down into there, I went long with the expectation to trade higher, and that's exactly what we got. So beautiful price action, and yeah, just what we anticipated, which is nice to see. You can see how we're starting to fill this fair value gap right here. We've traded through it a few times now. But overall, I'll be looking for us to start trying to fill the weekly fair value gap as a whole, preferably. We'll go down to the 4 hour. Here you can see our price came down, touching that level, which is also a breaker level because it's a up close candle before the down move. And then you can see our price expanded off of that, whipped back around, and now we're consolidating inside of that weekly fair value gap. Now, this is something quite interesting. What you'll find is that once we're inside the fair value gap, price will struggle to get out of it. So preferably volume stays within the fair value gap. If volume continues to stay within this weekly fair value gap between this range, that's all good signs to me, and it suggests that price will want to keep pushing higher to try and fill it. Now, we do have a nice bullish order block right here. We can draw that out. But once we drop down to the lower time frames, we should be able to get a better look at price. So here is the 1 hour. You'll see I've got the midnight open delineated. These are anticipated breakaway gaps. If you watched yesterday's video, you'll know what I'm talking about. But preferably these stay open. So I want to see this level stay open, and I would like to see this level stay open. Again, midnight candle. So, I mean, the Sunday opening. So that would hopefully provide support. There is a swing low down here where there's going to be stops residing, but it does look like we've just engineered some liquidity here. So moving into tomorrow, in terms of the down movement, because remember, we expect some kind of Judas swing. In terms of downwards price action, I'd like to think that we can find support on that 4 hour bullish order block I just drew our attention to. So this level here, but price very well could dig a little bit deeper, and we will allow for that. Again, CPI, we need to be careful. Let's go to the 15 minute. You'll see how we came down, took out the Asia range low, classic price action, touched that Friday high, just as I was stating, and then look at the expansion off of that. Beautiful, came down, retraced, and then finished with a high at 9:30 in New York. Classic price action, and then we've broken lower since. So yeah, we've got the Asian range consolidation to move into, and then hopefully when moving into London, we see that classic Judas swing with higher prices for the rest of the day, moving into CPI. Now, let's say that doesn't happen. If we start to if we trade lower and it's quite aggressive, then we'll see this anticipated breakaway gap get traded through, and then we can simply start looking for these relative equal lows to get traded to, and this low. But like I said, I'm wanting to see price push higher. It doesn't have to, but preferably it does. And I'm looking at these consolidations, such as this range here. I'm looking at these consolidations to provide us support. So I want to see price struggle when it gets into these ranges. It can trade in there as much as it wants, but preferably it's going to struggle to get through it. So that's what I'm watching moving into tomorrow with GBP USD. Let's now go to Euro USD to finish off. We'll start on the weekly here as well. And you'll see we've traded higher. Again, what I have done, I don't think I've done this earlier this week. I've marked out the midpoint of this weekly wick. So this is consequent encroachment. So price may want to start trying to reach and trade into that, which is completely fine. We can go to the daily, and you'll see how we took out this buy side liquidity just as anticipated. So let's grey that out. Why? Because we've done it. We don't need to worry about that anymore. Like so. And you can see how we closed lower, and we've also traded into this Friday high as well, same as pound. Now, euro is a little bit weaker than pound right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw euro take out Tuesday's low. As we get down to the lower time frames, we can look more into that. But here's price action nonetheless. We traded higher, ran for that buy side liquidity, and then had an instant turnaround trading lower. And you can see we're just in a slight consolidation. You can also see there's a massive fair value gap down here. I'd like to think that can provide support. And obviously we have this massive bullish order block as well, which is coupled with that. So I would like to think that price can make this the low of the day if we are going to trade deeper into this. But when we get down to the lower time frame, we can have a closer look. So here's the daily dividers put up now. I have the Sunday opening marked out just the same. And would you look at that? What a coincidence. That Sunday opening is lined up perfectly with that 4 hour bullish order block. another reason I'd like to think price can find support here. We have some beautiful relative equal lows forming. And what do I mean when I say beautiful? When I say beautiful, I mean like this low, this low, this low. Look how like nicely leveled they are. So when I see levels like that, I know they're likely going to get tagged. So we've got some sell stops below there. Again, same as pound, I'd like to think we can create some kind of Judas swing, trade down into that bullish order block, and then once it reaches the order block, I don't, it's not like I just buy. I don't just say, oh, buy. I look for price and I look for a reaction. I want to see a reaction. I also pay attention to time. So if we're trading into this order block at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., maybe even 7, I'm more likely to buy as opposed to any other time, because those are times where we expect injections of liquidity. But generally speaking, I'd like to think that this can make the low of the day. Let's say price trades through it. If that's the case, then it'll likely run for these lows and start running for this swing low. This is a breakaway gap, so as far as I'm concerned, this shouldn't get touched. But like I said, if it does, we know we're likely going to be bearish, because we want to see certain fair value gaps left open, and this is one of them. So again, CPI tomorrow, gotta be careful. Classic consolidation here, but it does look like there's going to be a nice setup on pound tomorrow. So overall, I'd like to see it come down, grab that sell side liquidity, then we can target Tuesday's high as the buy side liquidity with the potential trade into this consequent encroachment. And yeah, that's pretty much everything, guys. So I hope you found this insightful. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Don't forget to follow me everywhere. Like, drop a comment, join the Discord, because I am active in there. And yeah, it should be an interesting day tomorrow. Be safe. It is CPI. Like I said, like, don't take my word verbatim. It's like, we have to consider it's CPI. Anything can happen. So with that all taken into account, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.